Hi, this is Michelle Walford, and I'm in Lewis, Delaware, which is Zone 7B. And I wanted to show you, I have about 3/4 of an acre, and in a development, we created a certified backyard habitat in our house. So when we bought this property 20 years ago, we didn't have any shrubbery or trees on it, so everything is in here. We planted, we probably overplanted because I didn't know what I was doing. So I have a woodland backyard. It's very different than what my neighbors have. And I have about 75 hydrangeas. So I started out with my very first one, which was a florist hydrangea. And if you don't know what a florist hydrangea is, these are the kind you get in the supermarket. You start seeing them around Easter, Mother's Day. They usually have aluminum foil around the bottom. And those are gift hydrangeas. So they're meant to be given as gifts, enjoyed, then they get spent. Well, I didn't know any different. And you can plant them in the landscape. And here's proof of that. This was a hydrangea that was at my mother's funeral. My mother died at the end of March, and hydrangeas were her favorite flower. It was the only shrub she couldn't kill. And so the ones we bought from the florist were like a pink purpley color. So when we bought this, moved into this house in April, so I took it and I planted it in the ground. I didn't know what I was doing. It's facing east, but there's no canopy here, so it gets beaten down by the sun quite a lot. This shrub will stress out because it wasn't cultivated. It wasn't bred like by proven winners or Monrovia to be winter hardy or cold hardy. So it's a hit and miss with this. This has had some real dips. This has been invaded by cane borers because I pruned at the wrong time. It has now come back very well. But I have this temporary half-baked arbor up here. This is just a little cheapo $39 aluminum arbor. And I have some landscape. So my purpose is to see if this worked, and it did. It really helped at least this part of the hydrangea from getting the sun beaten down on it. So I'm going to invest in a wooden trellis or arbor, and I'll put shade cloth on it until I can grow some vine and clematis or American wisteria, something like that. But this is proof that although the cultivar is unknown, this has 100, at least 100, maybe 200 blooms on it. I feed it with hollytone, all my hydrangeas with hollytone in around March. And it gets sort of like a lime green and blue. It's a little more purple showing up in the video than what I'm looking at. But this will round out into a very beautiful, deep royal blue. And I just have to baby this. It doesn't like the heat, it doesn't like the cold. This is the one I will run out and cover. In April we had a late frost, and you'll see some frost damage. But mine all recovered. This looks like this is going to be a bumper year. Then over here, I went to Lowe's, right? And my idea, I think I had Annabelle's in mind, but again, this was 19 years ago. I really didn't know much about hydrangeas, other than I like them, right? So a lot of people, it's a live and learn thing. So I went to Lowe's and I bought I wanted a row of white hydrangeas along this fence line. And I think I was thinking Annabelle's, but I ended up getting what is going to be it's just starting to bloom now. This is a macrophylla, and it has a really pretty ruffled leaf on it. So this is a Schneeball, which is German for snowball. So I thought I was going to get 9 of them or 8 of them. I ended up getting an unknown variety here, which its first year bloomed pink and white, and this is going to turn out being blue and white. This is a gorgeous, it's either a peppermint that's turned blue, or it could be City Line Mars. Again, these were all mislabeled, so I don't know the variety. But this is look at this, it's just a bumper crop of the most gorgeous blue and white leaves, or rather blossoms, sorry about that. So then I have one 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 snowballs, and then at the end I have 2 lace caps. They're not in bloom yet. This is a limelight, that's not in bloom yet. So this one over here is a oak leaf. It's a monster. This is what I call, I think this is ruby slippers. It's got to be 8 feet tall, maybe even pushing 9 feet. The bees love it. Of course, oak leaves are native to the United States, the eastern side of the United States. The florets, the florets are more spaced out than any of the other oak leaves I have. But this is all, none of this is sterile. This will root itself. I've propagated this, or starting to propagate this. And just a lovely, but it's just a monster. And this gets, although it's facing east, it gets a lot of sun. So the sun on this probably till like 1 o'clock, and it can get very hot here. But this is very well established, probably 18 years old, 17 years old. I had a tree here at one point, but it may have performed different if it had more shade. Over here is an interesting hydrangea. This is a Marisi or variegated, so this will bloom either pink or blue. Mine is blue, and you can see the leaves are variegated, but a lot of the new growth is not, and that's called revision. It goes back to its, so the variegated was somehow genetically manipulated or designed, but you don't always get that copied over when you, all the cuttings that I've done from this have come up solid green. But look at the blooms. So this is this is called macrophylla Marisi, although the leaves aren't that big. And you will see over here, this was susceptible to frost damage. So I did cover it, but you can see like right here, there's a little curling, a little browning. Here's a really good example of frost damage. And you can see I didn't prune it out, I just left it. But that's classic frost damage. So what happened here is in April we were having 70-degree weather. The plant wakes up and goes, oh boy, and it starts to set out these little tiny buds. And then boom, we had 3 days or 2 days of 33, 32, 34-degree weather, and that harms them. So this is one that I covered, but obviously not completely covered. You can see that damage. So this is Hydrangea Marisi. That's Marie with 2 I's at the end, S-I-I. Then over here I have, none of my panicles have anything. This is Little Quickfire. This is about its 5th year in the ground. This is another florist hydrangea. This was a Mother's Day bouquet in full bloom on Mother's Day, so early May, and that's not when hydrangeas bloom. So this was another gift hydrangea. This one also needs protection. It's vulnerable to heat, it's vulnerable to sun, it's vulnerable to frost, and it's vulnerable to cane borers. So I don't prune it. I don't prune it until maybe in July or August. I'd take the old dead sticks out at that time. But right now it is loaded, and this will be a very beautiful dark blue. Next to that I have, this is a oak leaf, another oak leaf. And it used to be, I used to have a big tree here. It's been taken down, so this is going to get more sun than it normally does. But normally the panicles on this are very dense. This will turn white, then a greenish white, slightly pink, and it goes to a beautiful chocolate brown. The one thing I know about oak leaves and panicles is once they're white and as they transition over to that pink, if you don't water them really well, even if they're established, they'll quickly just shift right over to brown. So I believe this is Sykes dwarf. This is not as big. It's probably, I'm 5'10", so this is probably about 4 foot tall and about 4 foot wide. It's arched over. The profile of it's lovely. This is maybe 10-year-old. 10-year-old oak leaf. Let me back up here. And you can see we had a tree right here. We have a gazebo now, but the tree was here, so it arched over. It wanted more sun than it was getting, but it thrived really well. So the pollinators love this. This is an entry into my shade garden, and here I have some new ones. Part 2, what you're looking at here, I have a shade garden. This all used to be flowers, and then because of the tree canopy, it's very deep shade. It gets a little afternoon sun. This is Summer Crush. This is its first summer bloom. I bought it in August last year. The blooms were spent, and put it in the ground. It's done really well for its first year. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 blooms. And I love that it's pink because almost every one of my pink hydrangeas I bought has shifted to purple or blue. My soil is very acidic. But next to that is Bloomstruck. And look at the blue and the purple here. So I don't add any aluminum. And I'm just very, very delighted that this is remaining pink. This over here is 2 years old, so this is its second summer. It's about 1.5 years in the ground. This is Oak Leaf Alice, and this is one of the larger. Look at the leaves on that compared to my hand. That's a big oak leaf. The florets are pretty dense, so I'm looking forward to watching this grow. In the back here, this is a Walmart rescue, and it just may be, I don't know, it didn't have a label. It was $7. This is its second location. I had it in a sunnier spot, didn't do very well, but look, and this gets deep shade. I have a lot of trees overhead. This gets a little bit of morning sun. My neighbors have trees. So even though this gets just pockets of sun, and a little afternoon sun will trickle in here, it's doing really, really well. And then over here, this was an impulse buy. It's a little flat. We've had a lot of rain. But this was from Lowe's, and it was just called Star Hydrangea. So it's a double bloomer. And naturally, this wouldn't be this bloomy in the early June. It would just be coming up. So this was forced a little bit in the nursery. And that's the one thing when you're buying hydrangeas, say at Lowe's, they've been growing in a very warm greenhouse. They're going to bloom early, but in the normal natural landscape, they won't. So this is sort of spent. I don't think it's a rebloomer, but it's got some healthy new growth. So this is just going to be a transition year. And then over here, I have a little Tough Stuff Aha. This was an impulse buy, $19. It's a lace cap. Just kind of sitting here. This is a mountain hydrangea, or hydrangea serrata, and this is Blue Billows. This used to be a monster. I cut this down to about 2.5 feet. I was able to divide it into about 6 other hydrangeas, so I have them planted everywhere else. It's probably not going to bloom this year, but this blooms up pretty dainty blue lace caps. All of the serrata hydrangeas are called also mountain hydrangeas. They are good for cold climates. They're cold hardy. And they're all lace caps that I can tell. So then here is a serrata. I just bought this. The nursery where I bought it, in Delaware, Sand Hill Nursery, she had this out in full sun. And it was festooned with these blooms, right? And so there it is. This is called Tough Stuff. So this is Proven Winners rebloomers, are this Tough Stuff line. And it's coming in pink. Next year it may come in more purple or more blue, but this year it's held its color. And I'm just really, really delighted with that. But this gets Right now it's just a cloudy day, so it gets some afternoon shade and some morning shade. But it's sheltered. There is a big tree over here. So even though it's getting afternoon sun, it's not getting beaten down with afternoon sun. And it transitioned very well. When I dug the hole, I put in some compost and some leaf droppings or leaf molded, not moldy leaves, but old leaves. So that's our pond. Then let's go over here. This is Tough Stuff Aha. Now I bought this a couple years ago, put it in a container. It didn't do well, probably too much sun. So I have the one that was almost failing. It's come back, it's in the shade. But this one gets, I would say by 1 o'clock it's in the shade. So it gets a good bit of sun. If I think it's too much sun, I have like a webbed chair over there, that chair over there. I'll put it over top of this just to give it some shade. But it's doing really, really well. Then I have a couple ones that I propagated. That's one that's coming from a blue one. This is vanilla strawberry. So that hasn't bloomed. And then these are 3 little propagations, 1, 2, 3, that have all, there'll be 2 more years before I see anything from those. This is a really interesting hydrangea. This, I'm not positive of the name. I bought it from Wayside Gardens, which is a mail order catalog. It is a serrata. So it's like almost like a macrophylla, but again, the serratas or the mountain hydrangeas are all lace caps. And they're not like the twist and shout lace caps. They're more dainty. This starts out white, and this will change to pink and purple. It almost looks like somebody came in here with a watercolor brush and watercolored them. It changes hues throughout this, really unique. And the leaves, some of the leaves on serratas will turn a little bit reddish. I don't worry about that. I don't do anything with it. But there's hundreds, multiple hundreds, maybe even 1,000 blooms on this. I've mowed this down a couple times, or my husband mowed it down once. I've revitalized it, wasn't sure I liked it. Now I just love it. So this is a mountain hydrangea. Again, very, very cold hardy. This is one you don't have to cover. And then over here, those schneeballs that were against the fence line in the part 1, this is a propagation. So I propagated this from layering, which means layering a low branch down on the ground and it'll take root. You get more of an established new plant to start with as opposed to a cutting. But this is its second year in the ground, and just look at that. I've got several blooms coming out from that. This is oak leaf snow queen. So this is your snow queen. This is a very densely, look at those florets, how tight they are together. I don't get that with the 9-foot one I've got behind me. This is snow queen. This is summer number 3. So this was bought from a nursery in a, 2-gallon pot. And over by that this is Pinky Winky. Again, they're panicles. They're not, oh, there's one starting right there. Yay. But the panicles love the sun and they bloom later. So they're more like June and July. This is a variegated propagation. So this is its 3rd year, sleep, creep, and leap. So this is the leap year. It's ready to bloom. This will be a white and blue, but there's no variegation. So I propagated a variegated cutting, or layering, but it didn't come over. It didn't transition with it. This is one that we've stepped on like 3 or 4 times. Now I have a cage on it to protect it, so that's going to be 3 or 4 years. This is the Tough Stuff Aha that I had in a container, got burned up, almost died, put it in the ground. Here, this faces northeast, So it gets morning sun, a little bit of morning sun. It's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 blooms on it, just starting. So it likes that. So you know you're going to make mistakes. This one here and the one over here were in the front of my house, and they were facing south, and they were just getting beat to death. So they're here. I don't expect them to do anything. I'm leaving them alone. I fertilize them, but I think next year I will get blooms out of them. So they transplanted well, and I find that hydrangeas do transplant pretty well, but expect that they won't bloom for 2 or 3 seasons to get their footing. So those are those. Let's go to part 3.